And so it is. Welcome to Auth Part 1. It's a three-part series. We've done this a few times now. By the end of this, you should be able to crank out some Auth in your sleep. So let's overview a little bit. Okay, so for Part 1, all we're going to do is create users. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to create new users in Rails, and you should be able to explain a little bit about how hashing works. Give you a preview of where we're going to go. Tomorrow, we'll work on authenticating users. So if this is creating users, all right, you made an account. Now, how do I know you are who you say you are? So this is logging in. And then on the third part, we're going to say, okay, cool, you're logged in. What are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? That's protecting resources. So we're going to do this in 3 different lessons. So let's talk about this first one, creating new users in Rails. The first part of this, you should be able to do in your sleep at this point. All you're doing is making a model and like defining some code actions on it. Now, where this gets more interesting is this bcrypt bit and this secure password bit. So what we'll end up doing is creating a user, but what we don't want to do is save the password for that user in plain text. Why? Why would I not want to save a user's password in plain text in my database?
Security.
Yes. Like what in particular? What's insecure about that?
It can be hacked.
Can be hacked. Cool. And then what happens if somebody hacks the database?
They have all of their people's passwords in person.
Everybody's passwords. Okay, but if I can't store someone's password, well then how am I ever going to be able to tell who they are?
ID maybe?
Okay, so I'll be able to say, hey, I'm Kyle Coberly. My username is Kyle Coberly. I'm ID 34 in the database. He goes, cool, gotcha. But then John Higger goes, nah, ha, ha, I'm also ID 34. I'm also Kyle Coberly. How do they know which one of us is which? Who's telling the truth?
I mean, I'm the real Kyle Coberly.
No, that's true.
There are ways to encrypt passwords so that it can go forward and backward and be stored that way.
Ooh, let's explore that a little bit more. Say that again.
There are ways that you can send and store passwords in encryption.
Yeah.
Using encryption, sorry.
Cool. So now I want to get a little bit more specific with language. Let me pull up a whiteboarding app. Okay, so we can encrypt the password, and that'll let us not save the actual password, but something that's kind of like the password. And that we can, if we have the real password, we can maybe calculate it and see if it's the same thing. That's one way to do that. Can anybody think of the security problem with that? There is one. We made it a little bit harder for a hacker, but not much. What's insecure about encrypting a password and then just storing that?
If something can be encrypted, it can be decrypted.
There you go. So if I have an encrypted password, well, cool. You encrypt something usually with a key. Nice. So now you've stolen the database. You have all these encrypted passwords. Well, if you also managed to steal the key while you were in there, neat. Now you have everything. Well, that's no good. What else can we do? Any other ideas? My pen not working. Any other ideas? If I can't encrypt it, what else could I do? Nothing? All right. All right. My tablet's frozen. All right. So if encryption is a two-way process, there is such a thing as a one-way process. It goes one direction, cannot be done the other way. This process is called hashing. And hashing works a little bit like this. Come on. Oh, did I have it? Ah, it was really hard to do without a pen. All right. So the idea behind hashing is that it's easier to square something than it is to take something's square root. So that's not that hard to calculate. On the other hand, that's actually substantially more difficult to calculate. So using this kind of weird principle of numbers, we can make something that's easy to do in one direction and difficult to do in the other direction. All encryption is kind of based on this idea. Now hashing in particular, we'll actually use a slightly like modified version of this. Let's say I have cat. And I do just some number substitution on this. The letter T is the 17th, I think, letter of the alphabet. So if I add all of these up together, I get 4 plus 17, 21. So I could say that using Kyle's shitty hashing algorithm, cat hashes to 21. I could even sum that even further and just add those digits, so we always end up with a single digit. So I say that the hash of cat is 3. All right. So if I use the exact same thing down the line, cat, all right, so that was 3, 1, 17. All right, so that adds up to 21. You add those together and you get 3. So I can reliably reproduce the same thing. But if you stole my database and you see 3, how can you get to cat?
If you don't have the algorithm, you don't know.
Even if you have the algorithm, even if you're looking at the spec for how I did my algorithm, how can you tell that this was cat and not C or not AAA? You can't. That's
Yes, and try and see if it works. A bunch of time.
My wife just said, this one weird trick will make the entire internet work. So this is the idea behind hashing. You give me a password. I'm not going to store that password. I'm not even going to store an encrypted version of that password. I'm going to store a hash of that password. And then when you give me that password again down the road, I'm going to hash that password and compare it with the one that I have. This is how logging in works. Questions about this so far?
I missed how you got the 3.
Sure. So I just did number letter substitution for these. So I took a 3, a 1, and a 17. You add those together, you get 21, and then you just add the numbers in those together and get 3. It's the world's worst hashing algorithm. Kyle Corbley special. A real hashing algorithm is way more complicated than that, but does the same thing.
Cool, thanks.
Other questions so far?
Why is it called a hashing algorithm out of curiosity? What is hashing?
Super good. It's not a mathy thing, it's a breakfast thing. So when you're making hash browns, you shred some potatoes, you put them on a grill, and you start mixing them together. And then you start mixing in some other potatoes, and you start mixing in some other potatoes. And before very long, you can't tell which potato any one piece of it came from. That's hashing.
Okay, is that related to the Ruby hash or no?
No, it's related to hash browns.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Good to know.
Other questions about hashing? Cool. Let's see this in action. So for this first part, I don't want you to follow along. You're going to get a chance to follow along in just a second. I just want you to watch this. So I'm going to make a new Rails app, new Rails new -- API, and this is going to be called the House Hunters API. So it makes me a new Rails app. And I'm going to follow some steps. First thing I'm going to do is install bcrypt. Bcrypt is the tool that we're going to use to generate these hashes. And they actually give you a, throw you a bone by having it in your gem file. It's just commented out. So if I go into my gem file, and into this gem file, down on line 17, there it is right there. All you have to do is uncomment it out. Cool. Bcrypt is there. Now if we bundle install, all right, we got bcrypt. So next thing we need to do is make a route to create a user. If I go into the router and do something like resources, users, only create. Cool, done. Next thing, I need to create a controller to create a user. So I'm going to Rails G controller users. Oop, something I didn't like.
When you generate a resource, aren't you supposed to do it with singular nouns?
No, models are singular. What version of Ruby am I using? 2.6.3? Curious. Rails generate. Bundle install. Ooh, I'm flummoxed. Let's try this. I'm going to install a newer version of Rails real quick. LVM use 2.6.5. All right. Rails new House Hunters API. Oh shit. This is a mistake that you are going to make at some point too, so make note of it. When you do this, do the -- API. Do yourself a favor. That will set you up with the bcrypt and like lots of other good things. Okay, so it is House Hunters API. Head over to that gem file. Uncomment decrypt. Bundle install. Beautiful. Go over to the router. Resources. Users only. Cool. And then Rails G controller users. What the heck in the world? Anybody seen this one before?
Maybe I think it's because you already put in the route. The route usually gets built for you when you do the generate resource.
I'm not generating a resource, though. I'm generating a controller. Interesting. Well, shoot, might happen to you too. Let's troubleshoot. Problem is with libffi. Libffi cannot open shared object file. Okay, that's for Lambda Rails. Huh. All right. Maybe I got a Chromie install. Bundle install. All right. That's more like it. Like side note, as an editorial, Gem is the single worst package manager I've ever used. Things like that kind of happen all the time. But that's how you would debug that. All right, so we have a controller. We go over to users controller. Our next step is we want to like make an action in here. So we call it create. So just like we would normally do, we do something like @user equals user.create. And then in here we might have a username that comes in from params username. Maybe have a password that comes in through params password. This doesn't have to be the only thing. You can put whatever other things you want on here also, but let's start with these two. So I make a new user, and then I render JSON right on back, and I send it a status of created. Cool. Nothing crazy here. This is the exact same thing you've been doing for weeks and weeks now. Last thing, create a user model with a secure password. Here's where the magic comes in. This is the new thing. The Rails G model user, easy enough. But in the model for that, we're going to use a macro called has secure password. Just like that, that's all you have to do. And then installing bcrypt is what turned that on. It even has a little note in the gem file. It says use active model has secure password. So we're going to do that. And then when we make the migration for this, we'll have a string for the username. And watch it, a string for password digest, password underscore digest. That's the hash. So the new things that we did were this has secure password macro. And in the database, we're calling it password digest. It's still called password in the controller, in the database, it's called password digest. Part of what this has secure password macro does is it translates back and forth between password and password digest. So with
The password digest data type, it takes in, like, it's not technically the password that the user creates, which I guess you'll get to later, but it takes in something that's not a hashed password and hashes it as it stores it in the database.
correct. That's exactly what it does. So let's see if it works. If I Rails db migrate, nice. If I Rails s, if I pull up Postman and do a post request to users with a username and a password, I should see like the regular like Rails database stuff come back in the response and that hash. So I'm going to change that to a post. I'm going to change this to 3000. That's users. Over here in the body, it's a raw JSON string with a username, Kyle, and a password. Why am I saying password instead of password digest here?
Bcrypt knows.
Because Bcrypt knows. Bcrypt knows when I say password, I mean password digest.
If you were to write password digest, would it fuck with anything?
Absolutely. Would have no idea what you're talking about because it's not looking for that. So I get a 201 created back. And hey, it's a little bit better than 3, but that's a password hash. Lots of different things could make that hash. Your ability to guess one of them is like 1 in a trillion. Better than the odds of getting hit by 2 meteors at once. That's it. Ask me some questions about that.
Why didn't you generate the resource?
Because I was doing it in steps. You can do
Okay.
that. I never like that. It makes too much boilerplate. It fucks up half the time. It's always faster for me to create the model in the controller.
Okay.
You can if you want to, though. It's not against the rules. I just don't like it.
No, I just didn't know if that was an important like
Nope,
step
not
in the
important step.
process.
Not important. More questions?
What did the database look like again?
It looked like that.
Copy that.
Both of them are strings. All you got to do is change the name from password to password digest. More questions about this?
What did you put in the routes to?
Everything like from the router to the controller is exactly the same as every other Rails resource you've ever made. There's the route. There's the controller, nothing special. There's the user, nothing special. Oh, that's new. That's what powers all of this. And we got that from installing Bcrypt. And then we've got that migration in there that calls it password digest. Cool, easy enough, right? So now you all are going to help me do it again. Okay, House Hunters API is gone. We're going to do this round robin style. John, give me a first step.
What are we doing again?
All that over again. We're making a user.
Okay. Rails G model user.
What? Rails G? I deleted the folder. Doesn't exist.
Oh, you deleted everything. Rails new. And then you create your project name and then dash API.
Dash API. Don't forget it. House Hunters API.
I think it's got to be it's got to be Rails new House Hunter then dash. Oh.
No, it doesn't.
Oh,
Cool. Indiana, give me the next step. Unmute. There you go.
Yeah, sorry. So where you go to routes?
Before that, even before routes, there's something we got to install.
Oh, bundle install.
So even before that, there's a new thing that doesn't come with just dash API.
Decrypt?
Decrypt. I got to uncomment out that line. So I go into the gem file, I go down to the line that says decrypt, delete that, and then bundle install. Beautiful. Jason, give me another step.
Not on mute. Cool. We just did the, so now we would, depending on if you're doing it manually or not, you would create the route. What was the next thing you did?
Yeah, let's do that. So what am I putting in here?
It would be something like resource users.
Resources.
Resources, and then users, and then comma.
I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Go ahead.
And then comma, only, colon, and then in square brackets, create as a symbol.
You're beautiful.
Have it as resources in the last one. Why resources?
It was resources?
It was, yeah.
All right, I never remember this shit. All right. It'll bark at us like if we try to run it and got it wrong.
What's
cool, Nolan. What's next?
You need a user controller.
Yeah, I do. Any day now. All right, whenever that finishes up, Ashley, what am I doing next? Unmute.
Every time, I swear. There's oh gosh, there's something I think you need in controllers.
There is something I need to do in controllers. What is it?
I want to say you want to go into the user.rb file and you want to put has secure password in the class.
Ooh, that we're gonna do that at some point, but that wouldn't be the controller. That would be something else. What do I do in the controller?
Do not remember.
Okay, so we just established a route that has the standard like create thing for users. So in that controller, just kill this.
I'm gonna say I know you don't have your models yet.
I definitely don't have the models. I also don't know why my terminal's frozen. All right. Let's try making another one. So let's see. Cool. Rails G controller users. All right, so that exists now. Ashley, what goes in here? The last thing we did was this.
It's inside of that, it needs to say has secure password.
Oop, that's the model. This is the controller.
Dang it.
This one is exactly the same as every other Rails thing you've done. No extra stuff.
I got nothing right now. I'm drawing
All
a
right.
blank.
So can you tell me what the long form version of this is? Somebody help Ashley out. What's the long form version of this?
You need to create like def create, and then you need to.
Well, yes, but question is, what is the long version of this? This is a short version.
The only action users can do is the create method.
Right. So how do I write out the route for that in Rails?
I don't remember the syntax, but there's a pound key in there somewhere. It's like
There is a pound in there somewhere.
It's like when you're making a custom route and you're saying route this method.
Route,
to
pound sign, create.
Ooh, so many good words in here. So the pound sign's going to be in there. The create word's going to be in there. There's a method in there somewhere. What else?
Oh, is it method?
Your
Pound sign, create.
Oh, so close.
Oh, I don't know. The
So what
opposite.
is the method?
There's a get. It's get. And then you do like the URL.
Is it get for a create?
Get.
Post.
Get.
Post. Cool. So that's the method. What's the other piece that I need? The method and the
Action.
oh, action's going to be one of these also, but not yet.
The end of the URL. The
Yeah, the path.
path.
So something like that. If you make a post request to users,
And
then what?
Now you do the create action.
So that's a create action. Actions exist on what?
Routes.
Nope.
Oh, I don't know actually.
Controller.
The
Yeah.
controller. So what controller has that action?
The user's controller.
Users. Okay. And then one last piece. How do I assign those?
Create.
Nope, almost.
Two.
Two.
Oh gosh.
So these two things are the same thing. When you make a post request to the user's path, send that request to the user's controller's create action. This says the same thing. Okay, so with that in mind, Ashley, do you have any new ideas about what we need to do on the user's controller? Unmute.
I think we need to start making the CRUD on that side.
Yeah, so what do I need to do over here?
Def create.
Yeah! Cool. Any, do you remember what goes in here at all? When we're creating a new instance of something, what's the first thing we do?
The first thing we're going to do is the at user
Yes!
equals user, capital user, dot JSON.
Ooh, not .json. That's how we send something back.
Yeah, it's user.new or user.create, depending on
Yeah.
it.
There we go. Thank you very much. James, give me another step.
Now you put in the params like username equals
Yeah.
params username and then password equals or password colon.
In the controller, no digest. in the controller, it's exactly like everything else you've ever done. It's no magic. Cool, very nice. Austin, give me another step.
We need to basically render JSON and yeah, I feel like there's different ways to do it. I usually always just do it at user, but if you want to, is it like
I would put it in a namespace like this.
okay?
It'll work either way. You'll be glad you did this one of these days. Cool.
What is the reason for that?
Sure. So I might want to bring back more than one thing. So I might have user. I also might bring back some dogs. I also might keep track of some errors. It's not wild to bring back more than one thing. And then in the JavaScript for that, I can do something like .then response. And then in the body of that, then I can destructure those out. I can say const user dogs errors equals response. And now I just have all of those available. That's all.
That's cool.
That is cool.
And I would not have understood that 3 weeks ago.
Cool. So, all right, cool. Controller's looking pretty good. Thank you, Austin. Blake, give me another step.
Did you create a user model yet?
No, I haven't.
So that would be the next step.
Very nice. Ryan, give me another step.
Then you have to go into that model and put that has underscore, and I can't remember exactly what it was. Yeah, secure password. There you go.
Cool. Very nice. Yulia, give me another step.
You should to create the DB migrate.
Yeah. So what do I need to do in here?
So you should to put here username or t-string.
Yep.
Long username.
Good.
Comma, without comma. T-string and password something.
Password.
And underscore and
Yep.
digest.
Yes. This is the one that's different. It's stored in the database differently. Cool. David, give me another step.
After this one, I don't remember what is.
Well, we're set up pretty well.
Yeah.
How am I going to figure out whether or not this works?
You go Postman.
Yep. Even before that, this is an important step. It's easy to miss. We just made this migration, but
Oh, you got to migrate.
I actually have to migrate it. So Rails DB migrate. All right, it's migrated. So David, how will I figure out whether or not this works?
You're gonna go into Postman, and then you're going to go into your users, 3,000 users, and make sure it's a post request.
Yep, good. What else do I want to make sure that I've done?
Let's see.
URL looks good, method looks good. What else on this screen?
You make sure you input a username and password in there in the raw file. Yeah.
And raw what?
JSON.
Gotta pick that. If you do something like that, Rails is probably gonna bark at you.
Not probably, it will. I got stuck on an error like that for I don't know how long, but yeah.
Long enough to like never make that mistake again?
Exactly.
There you go. Cool. So then all I need to do is run this and what? Katie Clark, what did we forget?
The S.
What was it? Katie, what is it?
I don't know. That looks right. It's raw. JSON. It's in the body. There's no top.
Yeah, this does look all right. Why can't it connect to this server?
Oh.
Is your Rails running?
No, Rails isn't running. Don't tell me to run Rails.
I feel like that's the fun question you always get to ask is your Rails running?
Yeah. All right, so then I do that, and I get me and not my actual password back. Ta-da! All right, So, any questions that came up while we were going through that? All right, now it's your turn. So I want you to do all of these steps. Here they are. You're going to install bcrypt. That means you need to make your app first. Make sure you do --API. You need to make sure that you uncomment out that thing in your gem file. You need to bundle install. You're going to make a user route. You're going to make a user controller. That stuff is bread and butter, doing that all the time. Then we make a user model with the has secure password. We make sure we're saying password digest in our migration. We run the migration, and you will know this worked when you can go into Postman and get a password digest back. So I'm going to put 6 minutes on the clock to start. I want you to give it a shot. Go. It's okay if you don't get all the way there. We'll do one more round before we go. But try to do it on your own. Oh my God, my 8-year-old just gave himself a tattoo with a marker that says, "I love Kids Bop." He's asked me multiple times why kids can't get tattoos. That's why.
You should probably disown him.
That's what my parents threatened to do. It didn't work.
Another minute. All right, pencils down. So what I want you to do is give me a fist of 5. Fist is what the fuck we're supposed to be doing. 1 is I could barely even get started. And 5 is I got a password digest showing up on the screen. Throw them up and hold them up. Let me see them. Cool. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, very nice. So if you did not have a 5, I'm going to go through this one more time. Watch closely. RF, House Hunters API. I'm going to Rails new -- API, House Hunters API. And then I need to install bcrypt. So my House Hunters API, go into my gem file, go down to bcrypt, uncomment it, and then bundle install. Cool. Next, we need to create a route to create a user. Resources, users, but only the create action. Cool. Then I want a controller to create a user. So I Rails G controller users. If you're doing this in pieces like I am, what? FFI. Gem uninstall FFI. How about every one of them? Oh, that's why. It's got 2 different versions installed at the same time. Cool. Boy, is that annoying. Then I make this users controller. Easy thing to get mixed up here. Controller is plural. Model is singular. It's Rails G model user. Rails G controller users. And then I'm going to fill out that controller by giving it a create method. I'm going to user.create a new user. So we'll say username. Brand's username. It's taking the password too. No funny business here. This is just regular old Rails. And then render JSON. User is user. Let's go ahead and throw a status on there just to be fancy. All right. So controller's in pretty good shape. Now we need a model with a secure password. So Rails G model user singular is so. If I go over here and say has secure password, it's there. If I go over to the migration, t.string username, t.string password digest. That's the hash. Cool. Then if I run that migration, it is so run. And run my little old server. I should be able to hop over to Postman and pew pew blah, blah, blah. Created. Come on, Kyle. Go to my controller. Created is the status. If I do that and make me a user, pew pew pew, there's my password hash. What questions have you? So one more review of hashing. My password there is Kyle. If I was running this through Kyle's shitty hashing algorithm, KYLE. All right, so letter number value. All right, so K is 11. Y is 25. L is 12. And E is 5. Okay, so I turn each of those letters into numbers, and then I jam them together. So that's 17, that's 28, and that's 53. And then I just keep adding until I get one number. So with Kyle's shitty hashing algorithm, the password Kyle hashes to 8. With Bcrypt's hashing algorithm, Kyle hashes to that. Pretty cool.
I broke something on mine. The server's going crazy. I can't stop it.
Jane, stop this crazy thing! Well, why don't you screen share and let's try debugging.
Can you see my screen?
Ah! It's going cuckoo crazy. All right, let's take a look through your code and see where this maybe happened.
So it happened when I changed created to create.
Can you see, make a guess at what might be happening there? You're in an infinite loop. Why?
Because I think it keeps running through this create when it thought that this was create.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is. So go over to your server and kill it.
It won't let me.
Ooh.
Is there an easier way?
Yeah. Why don't you go over to, just make a new terminal tab.
Sorry, all the Zoom shit's in my.
And do kill all Rails. Kill all is one word. Cool. Now kill all Ruby. Cool. Now go back over to your terminal tab. It's still going. Good gravy. Okay, let's see if we can find the process ID for that. So go back over to that third tab and type PS.
2 words or?
No, the letter P and the letter S.
Oh, there's a key.
Yep, just that. Okay, so what this does, I see it now. Puma, that's what it is. So this is just like your, in Windows, you'd have like your task manager. There's a similar kind of thing in Mac OS. This is that for the command line.
Activity monitor.
So yeah, there you go, activity monitor. So we can do this a couple ways. We can kill it by its PID on the left column. Probably easier if we just do kill all Puma. Ooh, might make us do it manually. Okay, I want you to do kill space -9 space, and then we're going to put the PID in. And so the PID for that one was 51667. Do it. Cool. Head back over to that tab and let's see.
Oh, it stopped spinning over here. Yeah.
Hey! So that's like force quit. That's control delete. That's what that is on the command line. All right. So how do you fix your controller to keep that from happening again? What is created?
Is it just supposed to be create?
Nope. It is created, but it's the created. Right now, it's looking for like a local variable named created. It's a symbol.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Gotcha.
All right, so run that server again, and let's see. I want to see the ID. I want to see how many users your app is going to crank out in a couple minutes.
Does this look okay? Because this is where I was getting my error.
Yeah, that's fine.
Should I even bother sending it, or should I just see it?
Fire it off. Let's take a look. You're a wizard,
1,000.
You got it, baby.
All right, sweet.
Neat.
Thank you.
Anything else y'all want to know? Cool. Survey's coming out in a sec. See you tomorrow.